Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be probably one of the longest videos I've ever done for the YouTube channel. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been seeing a lot of requests in the comment section about going over the best scenarios for Apex Legends. So what I decided to do is I have a playlist here with every single scenario on Aim Lab, and I want to go over the pros and cons of every single one. I'll probably cap this video at about an hour. I'm going to timestamp every single scenario that I talk about, and you see me scrolling through it, and I have my hand camera here. This is going to be very high level. Some of them I won't even play all the way through. I'll try to keep it straight and to the point, talk about pros and cons. I'll go over settings at the start here, and well, we're going to get right into it and really discuss everything that Aim Lab has to offer for Apex Legends, and we'll talk about every single thing here for Aim Lab. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. I apologize first and foremost for the length of the video, but I couldn't think of an easier way to do this video because Aim Lab has just been getting such a robust list of scenarios these days, and it's only getting larger. So as of the date of recording this, just be mindful if some scenarios change or adjust or new ones come out of why they're not covered in this video. So let's go ahead and hit play and let's get into it. This is going to be a banger. Hopefully this does well. I don't know if this is going to do well. We'll have to see. And let's cover settings real quick, just as a reminder of what I'm doing for settings. So what you see here is a Logitech G305 that I'm using. That's what I'm using for today. My Artisan Hein is a little bit beat up. I've been using that. I have core pads at the bottom of my G305. I'm using a modded little battery here. So what it is just for lighter weight. I'm going to take it off so you can see it. And you might not be able to see it on camera perfectly. It's just to reduce the weight. So the sensitivity that I'm using for today, I'm using 0.41, which is 22 inches per 360. I still am using mouse acceleration. I have not warmed up for today. I'm back at 1080p just for this video, just so the quality looks a lot higher. I've been using stretch res in Apex Legends. Now, the biggest advice I can give for controls and settings is on the game profile, change it to Apex Legends, and then you get all of these settings specific for it. So I'm going to use the max FOV at 110 FOV just to mirror it. Now, the plus side about this is that this really gets you kind of a one-to-one feeling for Apex Legends. The downside is that some targets in certain scenarios are going to be relatively small. Now, another thing to highlight that what's going to happen in the scenarios that we cover for today is the feeling that some of them are going to be repeating, but they're not. There's different variants of each and every single one of these scenarios to really kind of highlight and discuss. So let's go, I guess let's just get into it. So also, let me go ahead and change my crosshair. You can change those. That's a pretty big deal. I'm going to change mine specifically to red just to heighten that. I want it just to kind of stick out a bit more, and we'll just get started. So the first one we have here is strafe. It's a strafing scenario, pretty straightforward. This is actually pretty good. I don't think my little setting there changed. Let's see here. One second, and let's adjust that real quick, and then we'll get right back into it. So visual, crosshair. Got to be sure you hit save on everything. That's something good thing to kind of stress it when you're doing this. Okay. So this is a great strafe scenario. This isn't bad for Apex Legends. The movement is a lot slower than what you're used to for Apex, especially the 80-80 spam left and right. So I have not warmed up for today, so my aim is a little bit wonky, but that's okay. I'm sure as we keep doing the video, you'll see my aim just get a lot more comfortable and more warmed up as we keep doing this. This is not a bad scenario. So if you're more new to Apex Legends, this is a pretty good scenario to, I guess you could say, to warm up to. So let's go into the next one. So this is a good basic scenario for those that are just trying to get used to the game. I'm going to come out with another video called How to Effectively Practice on Apex Legends. And the thing about that video is the reason why you would even utilize an aim trainer is because, well, sometimes whenever you hot drop and you loot for 10 minutes, you don't even get into a gunfight. And some people who are just playing Apex Legends for the first time still don't even have the muscle memory to really improve and get better. So what we're going to cover next now is Strafeshot. So Strafeshot Ultimate. This is a pretty good scenario where you have to hit the orb. Let's just showcase it. It's a shooting scenario. I don't think this is the best one for Apex Legends. The downside is that if you spam really quick, you can probably hear my mouse in the background. If you spam really quick, then you don't really benefit too much from from the back and forth strafe. So I know it says strafe shot, but you could tell like it only feels like it's one direction. Now, if you're doing it slow and you miss a lot, that's a downside. So what you can practice with this scenario specifically is really focus on your clicking and your stability whenever you click. So whenever you like spam your shot with your wingman or a G7, sometimes you over click or you press too hard. This will help you rein it in so then you're not pressing or clicking too hard, because you notice the faster you go, and then, you know, boom, 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 the easier and easier it gets. So just make sure to keep your click stable as you're clicking, and that's the overall goal. So this one I still would kind of put down to very, very basic in terms of getting used to just clicking, more so than the strafe. I know it says strafe shot, but so this is not like the best scenario, but it's a good entry just if you're getting used to your clicks and everything. So let's go to the next one. We're going to talk about Circleshot next. So this is a 360 shot. I think the strafing ones do a lot better than the clicking ones. It's the same issue that you run into here. This one helps a bit more with your flicks, flicking between a target, going left and right. So a bit better than the other one, to be honest, if you're going to practice. The other one focuses more on the smaller movement, so if you're pressing too hard. So focus on your clicks and make sure you're not like really hammering down on them. The same thing happens to controller players, to be honest. When you hit your trigger, you just like spam the living heck out of it. So be careful with that. Just be mindful. But this is not a bad scenario. I just, like these last two, once you're done with them, I don't think you ever really need to come back to them, to be honest. Like just do them a few times and then I don't really see the reason to revisit if you just realize your clicks are way too hard. I think Circletrack is much more efficient. This is probably one you're definitely going to live a lot more on, especially when you're getting used to your 360 aim. This is one that takes a much higher priority on the list than the others. So if you're trying to practice your 360 movement and ask yourself the question, is my sensitivity too fast or is it too slow? So ask that question as you're doing the scenario to figure out what you want to do to adjust that sensitivity, right? And as you can tell, this is a pretty decent sensitivity. I just ran out of mouse pad there, but as long as you could do a full 360 movement, plus. So Switchtrack. This is one of the base ones. This is a pretty good scenario as well. I would say the downside to this is your flicks on Apex Legends don't necessarily mirror this. They're a lot larger. There's other scenarios in the list that can be more beneficial to you than using this one. This one helps with stability in your aim after you flick. You flick and then you have to go to a smooth track. I think the more realistic version, if this was to live for Apex Legends, would be to really space these out. The movement is just a little too... The flicks are a little too small, but there's going to be a lot of scenarios that we're going to cover that are going to be really good for the base of this list to really help you improve. But this is a nice solid foundation. I know this is one of the top ones that shows up on Aim Lab for you to practice. So let's go to the next one, Blinkshot. Hit 3 targets and then destroy it. This one is better than the Strafetrack just because you're flicking to something different and also has a bit of a blink there. So a little bit better. A little bit nicer than the other scenario that we were talking about. If I were to do any of the click timing ones, this one would be a little bit more applicable to Apex Legends. But I still don't see the major benefit of these, so these would be a little bit lower on the priority list, especially because Apex Legends is more focused on tracking. I would even say Rocketshot just does a lot better for you guys, because you got the movement here. This one would be a lot better for Apex Legends. This is the one that you really want to focus on, and I would use the other scenarios that we just discussed to utilize to help springboard you if this is just way too difficult for you. But the reason why this is great is that it adds a little bit of a dodge element, and this feels a little bit better for Apex Legends as a whole. It's not perfect, but it's definitely a lot better because this movement because you're using your full 360. You know, there's usually going to be somebody jumping up like an Octane on a jump pad. You got a Horizon flying up and you have to click target them. This is just a lot more beneficial of a scenario than the others as a whole. So let's go on to the next one and let's discuss that. We're going to go to Strafebot. So the interesting part about Strafebot and the best way to train on this one is that this is actually a really, really good scenario. But the thing is that you hit the target. You want to try to aim for as much of the head as humanly possible whenever you're doing the strafe. This is a pretty good scenario. I know you can hit him on the body, which is the downside to this, but don't focus on score. Try to focus on trying to only land headshots. That would be my best advice to you, is trying to hit more headshots than anything else with these scenarios. This is going to be your better bet, because you can cop out and go for the body, but I think you're going to be better off training if you're going for the head. At least that's what I would do it. So stop worrying about your score so much when you're doing these scenarios and focus more on hitting headshots. Because have you done the 1v1 scenario on Apex Legends, well, scenario, where you're in the test range and you're with your friend and you do 1v1, that's pretty much what you want to replicate, is that distance. So don't cop out, don't go for the body, focus on the head, and you're going to be a lot better for it. So next, these are jumping targets. This is a Ninjashot. This, I would still go with the rocket jump one. These are jumping, but nobody jumps in Apex Legends. If they're jumping in Apex Legends, they're doing it wrong. They're going to be doing a crouch spam. So this is going to feel less applicable for those that are playing Apex Legends. The movement is kind of nice, the extra movement that it has there, but still, nobody jumps in Apex Legends. Like, I can rest assure you that. So if you happen to be watching this video, you jump on Apex Legends, go watch one of my movement guides, focus on your movement and your strafe spam going left and right. Kind of looks like that, a lot faster because we're on, well, Aim Lab. Okay, so we got the next one here. This is a click timing scenario as well. I still think the one that we discussed earlier is the better. This one does have the crouch, which is a little nicer. You focus on your movement going left and right, trying not to get hit by a rocket. This is even better than the Strafetrack bot because at least you're focusing more on headshots and trying to hit them. So this isn't not the best, not the worst, but there's definitely going to be better ones that we're going to touch upon. So the goal for today and for all these scenarios is to really highlight scenarios that are really going to help you. And I hope by going through all of them, I can at least give you a high-level pros and cons of every single one as quickly as possible. So when we talk about flicking and tracking, this scenario is way better for you because the distance and the speed after the track is much smoother. So remember we had the switch track? This is a better scenario for Apex Legends in terms of improving your tracking. I think everyone should use this one more for Apex Legends. This is a more realistic approach of when you're tracking somebody with R301, R99, of what's going to happen. Now, it doesn't have any recoil, and you can change that, obviously, but I think the best advice, honestly, would be to just practice the base, then go in game, and then tie everything you learn together. So Spheretrack. We go into this one. This is standard. This is a fantastic scenario. I know for a while it seems like we've been dogging on the scenarios, but now we're getting into the meat and potatoes. This is a fantastic scenario, especially the standard version, of utilizing your full mouse pad and make sure you do not lift. This is a good scenario for Apex Legends, especially when you're getting used to that full 360 movement and moving everything around. That's going to be your overall goal here. And just an overall really good scenario. So this is definitely one to put higher on the priority list compared to the other scenarios. So let's go into the next one. We talk about Spheretrack Standard and Spheretrack 90. Spheretrack 90 isn't bad either. So if you're really struggling with Spheretrack Standard, this is a step down to really help you balance it out. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just, the target needs to be smaller and needs to be moving around more to really stress you. But if you're a beginner and you're still learning and you're still trying to improve, this is a little bit of a better scenario to improve that overall tracking and movement. So let's go next to Arctrack. This is, I think instead of using Spheretrack 90, this is going to be a better scenario for smoothing out that aim and then going back to Spheretrack Standard. This is a really nice scenario for getting used to that arc, which is not a common movement that you normally get in most aim trainers. There are a lot of them in different ones, like goated tracking, and I guess an example would be Kovacs. But this is a really nice scenario for getting used to like an arc rather than everything with your aim being a bit linear. I think this is a good scenario for it. Startrack is also fantastic, just to kind of take things back. This is a great way to kind of take things down to basics and just focus on a track. So when you're doing this, focus on your sensitivity if it's too slow, if it's too fast, and what you need to adjust to make better improvements with your tracking. So overall, pretty decent scenario to utilize, and then tie everything together and use Spheretrack Precision, which we're going to follow up on and talk about here in just a moment. But everything that you're going to find with Apex Legends, you're going to find a theme as we go through every single one of these scenarios. It's going to help you. Startrack is really, really solid as well. I think the Precision and other variants of this are even better, but this is a great starting point as we talk about it. This is good for handling the small movements, and you're going to find out if your sensitivity is too slow, if it's too fast, and trying to find a middle ground. And then balance this out with other scenarios like Spheretrack Standard that require a lot of movement. You can have a low sensitivity and get a really great score on this, but it doesn't make a big difference because on Apex Legends, if you do not have your movement tied with, or if you don't have that big broad movement like this, tied with it, and you can't do that, well, that's going to be a problem. Let's do Reactivetrack. This is actually, I would prefer if this was a lot smaller The target's a little bit big, but it does react based on how smooth your tracking is and speed. This is a pretty good scenario for getting used to the unpredictability of Apex Legends, because the movement can be overwhelming, to say the least. It definitely can be overwhelming. But this is a great scenario for building that movement. It's not the most difficult because the target's pretty big. So you need to utilize other scenarios once you really nail this down, because this is more about reactive, but I still think this could be a little faster, and there's other scenarios that really highlight that reactivity more than this. And I think Spheretrack Standard gives an overall stronger base than this for Apex Legends, because the targets that you're shooting at are not necessarily always going to be this big, unless of course you're shooting at Gibraltar. So the Abovetrack scenario here is a pretty solid one, especially shooting from low ground. The only downside to this, you really shouldn't be shooting at targets that have the high ground on you, and you already have the advantage on this. So if you're going to isolate Spheretrack Standard, this is a pretty good base to at least getting used to this move, but realize how it's just mostly in the air compared to, because that's what it is, it's above track, which is pretty positive, but realistically you want the high ground. There's another scenario that we'll talk about in a little bit called low track, which is even more beneficial than this scenario that you see here. Let's go to the next one. This is below track. Well, it's already next. Awesome. That's pretty convenient. I put them all in a random order, so I didn't know what we're going to get. It's like watching Forrest Gump. So we have here the below track is a lot more beneficial, because every single one of my guides focus on positioning. You should be having high ground. If you're shooting from low ground, you're most likely doing it wrong. So if you have the high ground, this is probably a more uncomfortable position to be in. And this is something you should spend a little bit of time into, especially as you're moving like left and right with that. Just kind of giving an example of how that movement looks. So this is a really good scenario to practice when you have that high ground. It's not a position that you go into the test range, right? I'm going to pause it. You go into the test range and you practice this consistently, and you'll realize a lot that you don't practice this situation very common until you're in game and then stressed out. So practice this, give it a go, and work on your precision while you track from the high ground. Now, Spidershot Speed. This is a really great one for warming up and practicing your speed, no pun intended, with Spidershot Speed. So when we talk about more reactive and getting used to your sensitivity, Spidershot Speed is a great scenario. It's better than Gridshot. So I know Gridshot's going to show up in this list at some point, but this is even better than Gridshot. And of course, this is always hard to do these scenarios while talking over them. But this is much better for getting used to your flicks, especially if you're using a Wingman, a PK, EVA 8, getting used to centering your crosshair and knowing where the target is overall. That will just get easier and easier with time. So this is a good scenario for building some speed and momentum. So if you feel like you're slow, practice on this for an extended period. Don't do Gridshot, because what's helping here is your reactivity. And Gridshot isn't bad for creating a base of speed, but you want to pair it with something. So Microshot, also very beneficial as well. I would still say Spidershot is a little bit better. The Microshot here is very similar to the Spidershot that we just did. The downside with this is that if somebody's from a distance, I think the Startrack is going to be a bit more beneficial. And this target needs to be smaller. And I think when we do 6-shot ultimate later, it's a better exercise than this one for Apex Legends, because you can get the best score in the world on this, but this target is just a little bit too forgiving and too big, and you want to have a smaller target to put pressure on, because when you're in Apex Legends and you're shooting a mile away, those targets are going to be a lot smaller for you. But I mean, you can still create a great base there, especially when you're building speed. I just think Spidershot Speed is a little bit more realistic for you. So now what we have next here is Motionshot, which without the track, so it's more of like click, 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 and finding like a, I call it like a flow state if you're really focused, and much better than Gridshot for you, kind of building some of the flicking that you do. Because the thing is that the more you build speed on this, then the faster the targets come, so as you improve, it gets more difficult. So this is a pretty handy exercise for improving that. And there's other small tracking exercises that are also much more beneficial for you than the ones that some of them that we covered. So Strafetrack, let's see here, this is speed. So Strafetrack Speed is a lot better than the other one that we did. As you keep tracking, and this is just another variant of it essentially. It's not crazy fast, so don't really recommend using this one. There's other ones that we can cover that are going to be more beneficial to you. I feel like most people don't really strafe this way in Apex Legends. But if you're creating a base and you're just trying to build some consistency and flow, then sure, use that. Now when we go through Strafeshot Speed, notice what the trend here is that we're going through the speed variants, is that even though you're clicking through it, it still remains the same. So I know it's speed, but it literally feels the same as the other scenario. If you're fast enough and you can click through this, it almost makes kind of no difference if you're fast enough to just hit the 3 targets, because they don't spawn in too many different spots to give you that difference there. So Snipershot Speed, I would personally stay away from this one. I think you can learn a bit more on other scenarios to create a base. I know you need to right click to zoom in. I have my right click unbound because at one point I had a bad habit of clicking on it by accident, but you can zoom in. I think it's better to go in game and practice other things than utilize this one. I'm just going to be honest, and I was a sniper in Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 5, and I learned a lot from that. I just don't think the scenario is as beneficial towards sniping. The target's a little bit too big, and the thing you have to account for, I feel like that you will build up as a bad habit here, is bullet velocity is very, very important to account for in Apex Legends. So I'm not saying this is a bad scenario. I think there's a lot of other things that can help you become a lot better. So when we talk about Circleshot Speed, this is also a similar issue that I mentioned earlier. The speed doesn't make too big of a difference. It is faster. So if you're trying to create a base and you're trying to get your 3 shots in and you need something faster, then you have this one. But Circletrack, again, speed is even better than the standard variant that we just covered. At least there is a bit more speed to it whenever you're trying to get used to that sensitivity. But overall, not too massive a difference. Now you know the priority there. So now we talk about Gridshot Speed. So what you do, there's 3 targets that spawn randomly. Nobody really moves this way in Gridshot, unfortunately. But out of all the grid shots, the speed variant, in my opinion, is the most beneficial because the target is changing in size and it's a lot more difficult to track, and it keeps you building speed and momentum as you're doing this, rather than just the standard grid shot. So I think the speed variant of these is a lot better for you because the target is changing sides, encouraging you to be fast, which is the whole point of grid shot. But the thing is that nobody's ever really moving like super fast, like, you know, doing this movement in Apex Legends. Look at any pro player, you just don't see that. So it creates a solid base, but use it again as a base. I think Burstflick is going to be much more beneficial towards you improving than Gridshot, because you have to really, if you go too off kilter, you know, it's all about flicking towards a target and keeping as straight of a line as possible. This is why it's Burstflick, and I keep screwing it up, but you have to be pretty fast. Let's restart this. This one I have a hard part. Shoot the target in the center to spawn an aura varying size and random location, then keep your cursor straight as path as possible. There's also a line track that's really good. This is also one of my weaknesses. I'm not keeping this straight whatsoever, apparently. But keeping it, there we go. There we go, there's a flow. I tend to almost arc a little bit, which is pretty bad with my aim. But you have to keep a straight line and beeline it. There's another scenario in here that'll help build this. To be honest, this is probably one I need to focus on and put a base on, because then I get my flow and there I go. So all I need to do is just practice this and then boom, I knock it out of the park. This one is really, it's pretty positive compared to the standard variant. So if you do the standard variant, do the speed one. Look how fast this is. But it's also a small target, and this is going to feel more like the R99 than anything to give you that solid base that you're looking for. I think it's really beneficial and really helpful. And I think this is a good scenario to practice, especially when you're building speed with precision on a really small target. Very, very clean. The Abovetrack scenario here, the speed version, I think hopefully as you learn, you'll notice that the speed version of this is better for hitting like an Octane or Horizon, which is very niche. I know that tends to happen a lot in the game, but I know they're nerfing the jump pad as of late. So this is not a bad scenario to practice. I think the Belowtrack speed is better, and I think the standard for Abovetrack is a little bit more realistic. So whenever this drops down, there you go. There's this pretty solid swing there. And we go to Startrack Speed. This one also feels a bit smoother on the speed version, especially when you're building momentum. But you can see the difference, and hopefully as you're seeing all these scenarios, you can see them quickly in a video, the difference. And if you have a low sensitivity, you'll find that out very quickly on this, because this is pretty fast. I don't think I haven't done this one in a long time, to be honest. And the Reactivetrack speed is better than the standard one. I say better with like a grain of salt because the target is still really big. I would prefer this was like, I don't know, 20% of the size that it is to make it even more difficult, but it is a reactive track. I think the downside, if you do too much of the reactive track and the target's too big, you're just going to build some bad habits. I think there's other scenarios that we're going to cover that are also going to be better for you, for Apex Legends specifically. Then we have another speed variant here. This is Spheretrack speed, right? Spheretrack speed, you want to go precision. Okay, for all of these. Precision on Spheretrack is going to be much better than the speed variants. The targets are just way too large. So we're kind of lump summing these together. The thing is that these are great, but the thing is that they're too large, and you need to focus on your precision, and that happens a lot in Apex Legends, especially when the recoil kicks in, on how precise you need to be. So let's continue onwards with Circletrack. Circletrack speed, though, is good for precision and for speed. I would say the speed variant is probably better. The precision track, as you can tell, is not small enough. Even at this FOV, if you had a lower FOV, this target would look even larger. So when we do precision for Microflex, this is a good scenario for just because it gets smaller as you keep going. So remember how I said there was Microshot? This is an even better scenario than the Microshot standard and, you know, any speed variants. Just because you're reacting to a flick rather than just it spawns in different spots, which is what the movement is going to feel like more in Apex Legends. So this is a pretty decent scenario for building that. And if the only improvement I would make or change with this is to make the target even smaller, just to help you refine that speed, and didn't do too solid on that. Headshot or burst flick. I thought I said headshot. Let's go back. Let's see. I think it bugged out. There we go, headshot precision. This is actually a good scenario. This is better than the strafe bots. I think this is good for creating a nice horizontal base on Apex Legends. Remember how we were talking about the burst flick whenever you're flicking back and forth? I think this is a great way to build the precision on a horizontal basis. If your horizontal aim is really rough on your mouse pad, then you can utilize this scenario to help you create that strong base. And I think there's a lot of benefits here. This is better for Valorant and CSGO, but for hitting a wingman shot and keeping your crosshair at a head level, I know all the legends have different heights associated with them, but creating a base is going to be one of your best assets for you. Now, we were just talking about burst flick, but precision burst flick, remember the kind of theme here? A lot of the stuff is a lot better when it comes to precision, rather than the speed variants, I think are better for like motion shot, but to be more precise is going to be more key than anything that you want to do. You want to be more precise on Apex, and precision with a track is the overall goal. So the goal of this video, as we talk about everything, I want you to find a consistent through line of what you need to utilize to improve. Now, the interesting part about precision microtrack versus a speed variant is that of how slow it is. There's a plus and downside here, and you can see how small that really gets. The plus side here is making sure your sensitivity is not too high, and then using the speed variant to build some consistency, making sure you can keep up with the target. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. Might cut that out. If I don't, I apologize. So as you see here, now you have to ask the question with yourself, is my sensitivity too fast? If it's too fast, then you're going to need to slow it down. If it's too slow, because if you use a speed variant of this, then you need to ask yourself the question, what do I need to adjust and change from there? Because this makes me ask a question. Again, control. This is going to feel like a lot of recoil in Apex Legends, that small micro movement when you tug a little bit to the left, tug a little bit to the right. It's just how it's going to feel. Maybe I can get a bless you in the comment section. I did move away from my microphone. Okay. So now as we look at the precision variant here, I still think the precision variant is better. I would stay away from this scenario for Apex. You focus more on the Belowtrack, and then use Spheretrack Standard. I feel like that's a common theme, but there's a lot of other scenarios we're going to touch upon that are also really strong. Use a precision or speed variant of this and bounce between the two to find your sweet spot. So if you're curious on the difference between speed and precision variant, use one to focus if your sensitivity is too high and the other one to focus your sensitivity is too slow. There's always something you can learn with every single one of these scenarios. Like even this one is just kind of focusing on some of the smaller refined movement that you're building here. And even Arctrack, finding the balance between the two. We won't spend too much time on that, because I think we kind of get the point. But even as I do this, it makes me ask the question, not necessarily changing my sensitivity, but making sure I'm practicing. And the goal that you're trying to practice is the fundamentals to make sure you're encompassing everything with your hand, full mouse control. As you're building, everyone kind of uses this fluke muscle memory. You're building the muscles in your hand, so any sensitivity or movement, whether you're moving up, down, left, right, controls a different part of your hands. Fingers, ligaments, joints, everything engages a little differently, and that's your goal, to kind of figure it out and build from there. Startrack speed, I think, is a lot more beneficial than the precision version of this. I think the Microtrack will be a lot more eye-opening than this one, just to help you improve. But this target is a really good size for how it feels to track on Apex Legends. So that's the benefit of this scenario, is how it feels to keep a smooth track. And I think that's really the goal here, is smoothing out your aim compared to the speed. And Reactivetrack, the target's still not small enough, to be honest. Even if it gets smaller in this, you might as well do Spheretrack and other scenarios. The target's not small enough to make and break, but it's better. I think if it was also, it didn't die every time, I think that would be a benefit. But Spheretrack Precision, on the other hand, is very nice. I think this is a really good fit here for this, and is very beneficial to help you improve and make a difference with your aim and your accuracy. This is a good one. So you'll kind of find the theme. Spheretrack is really nice, and you start to refine your aim and your accuracy with other different scenarios, especially when you're flicking. I think we focused on a few of them, like Burstflick, Motiontrack, Spidershot. Spheretrack 90 Precision is very similar. Take it a little bit down to basics. This target is a lot more conducive to what you're trying to build in terms of improving your aim on Apex Legends. Definitely a lot better. Now, these are exercises to improve your cognitive thinking. So that's the interesting part of that. And we're flying through this. Actually, I'm surprised how fast we're going through all these scenarios. Maybe this video isn't going to be as long as I thought. So the interesting part about this is to get you to identify, and there's a lot of focus you have to provide on this. I don't know how much I would prefer on the base muscle building that you're doing for Apex Legends than using the cognitive ones. Just throwing that out there. Because what you do in this scenario is you're trying to see the difference in variance. Oh shoot, it's the wrong one. You got blue, yellow, purple. The difference was that one. Which kind of helps your decision making in the moment. But the thing is that in Apex Legends, everything is a little bit more reactive than using the cognitive ones. I think the decision shot is better. Decision shot is much, much better. It's like Spidershot. You hit blue, flick blue, 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 red, 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 oh, red, blue, blue, red, 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 blue, blue. You see how this is better in terms of the flicking and reaction time to Apex Legends? When you see something, you need to have speed, but also some thinking behind it. I think the other one, it requires a bit too much patience behind it. I'm not sure if you'll find that benefit there as much. Just putting that out there. I think this scenario is a lot better to help you think a little bit, slow you down somewhat, but also help on your flicks, because the faster you go, the more difficult it becomes. Now let's do the next one, which is also a decision shot. This is precision. So this is another variant of it. So if you're looking for more accuracy behind it, this is a pretty good one to do. And as you keep going, you'll see the targets are getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. So this is a good one to utilize as well. Different exercise to achieve the same result. This is a good one for Apex. It's just taking split. This is why you use this scenario. If you do a lot of spider shot and you're trying to improve the flicks, and you're getting into a flow state, but you feel like you're not progressing, switch it up a little bit. Add a little bit something interesting to it to So to get you thinking again, the idea is to get you thinking. You don't always just stay stuck on one scenario. If you're staying stuck on one scenario, then you're not going to benefit. So here's another version of Decision Shot. It's speed. The targets are larger. So you got to be a little bit faster whenever you flick. So if I slow down a little bit, you see that it, you know, gives you the warning that you missed it. So this is good for building the flick back and forth. The problem is that the target's a little bit too large, so it can build a bit of bad habits. So just be careful with that, building too many bad habits with utilizing this scenario. That's why everything I always focus on is more precision-based or a small tracking precision-based, because if you get too used to it, then that's not a plus. I know I have the audio a little bit lower, and a lot of people ask a question for audio, Spatial 8, Precision, any of these variants, are these helpful? Well, Apex doesn't even have audio, so you don't need to use this. Kidding. Apex has audio, so you hear the target. There you go. So you hear the target, and you just got to flick towards it. All the way back. This is, I think the base of this is helpful, especially, I think there's a speed variant that's much more beneficial to help you out to build a consistency, because this isn't about being precise. This is about just making sure you are flicking to the target you need to. And I know I've gotten like a top 100 on this. A lot of people don't play these scenarios. I think the best one is audio spatial, to be honest. Speed variant that we're using, because it's just all about being fast on it. And just making sure, like, I guess your headphones are working, that you can hear. You don't want to throw yourself too much off with it. There we go. Let's go with audio detection as well. So this focuses on, I don't think this one is great for Apex Legends. I think just hearing the speed and flicking is fine. This is really to focus on your 360 around you, which again is important for Apex Legends, but I think the other one just kind of creates a better base. And I think what you need to focus on more for Apex Legends, personally, is the mouse control. If you're going to focus on audio, get used to the audio in game. If you're looking for a base, do spatial audio speed, and then go back to practicing your muscle memory. Don't get too hung up on these. It's helpful, but there's also a limit, because if you're practicing for the audio that you listen and hear, then you're not going to get used to the audio in Apex Legends, and there's a lot of clutter in Apex Legends in terms of audio. A lot of clutter. So you kind of have to get used to that chaos of it, because you'll hear a target, and then you flick, and you try to, you know, get to it as fast as possible, you know? But I still don't think it's amazing. I think it's just okay. And you see where they spawn in their respected area. I just think this one's okay. It's not bad, but the problem is that this is not going to happen in Apex Legends. This is not going to be your base. And so you have Detection Ultimate as well, which is another variant of it. But again, I would steer clear of these. I don't think that they're going to be the best for you. Because realistically, you don't need to flick to this target. You just got to, with the minute you see it on your screen, then you react. See it on your screen, you react. Go do motion shot. Go do other ones. This is a cool exercise, but this is better for other video games, not for Apex Legends. We talk about Spidershot. Spidershot Ultimate is a solid scenario. This is a good scenario to build that speed and that reaction time whenever you see a target, and you keep flicking, and you build that muscle memory, flicking back and forth between a nice spatial distance. I think we did Spidershot Speed earlier. This is the ultimate version, so the targets are pretty small, but also require a bit of speed. A nice little healthy balance for you overall. I think this is a better version. Now when we do, a lot of now what we're going to cover is the ultimate versions. If you don't want to get too hung up on trying to find the balance between high or low sensitivity, the ultimate variants of these are going to be quite nice. It balances out speed with precision, but I personally like balancing the speed and precision out so you can find the sweet spot. And then of course when you find a sweet spot, go towards it. There's other scenarios like the headshot that I think are better than the microshot one. It's not bad. It helps build that muscle memory, but I think the ultimate version is not bad for microshot though. It's not bad. Okay, reflex shot. This is a bigger distance than the one you saw before. Also pretty positive. I think the other variant was a bit better. Also, it's a little slow, but still fine. I just think that you'll outgrow the scenario pretty quickly. I think Spidershot, Motionshot, even Gridshot Speed. There's a lot of other ones. Like I said, if you're going to use anything in Gridshot, the speed version is going to be better for you. Or Six-Shot Ultimate, just as an example. And hopefully I put every single one of these. I capped out the scenario list, so hopefully if I'm missing any, then I'll follow up with a different video and we'll talk about it again. We have Motionshot Ultimate. One that the beauty is that the faster you go, the faster that this goes as well. Because they're just going to keep spawning. Unlike the other scenario that we had, this almost feels like it kind of adapts to you. And you kind of create a little bit of a flow state. So Motionshot is really solid, especially when it feels like for Apex Legends, if you're going to flick. But remember, for Apex Legends, also focus on the tracking, because a lot of Apex Legends is tracking based more than anything. Now we have multi-shot. This is an interesting one to talk about, multi-shot. I think that this is a lot more fun to do than Gridshot. This is a Gridshot on... I can't find the right words. You can put a comment down below what you think those words should be. But this is a lot better because it tackles different parts of your screen. And also the varying sizes in terms of priority. This used to be a big base for every aim trainer to have. And I feel like this gets slept on a lot. This is a really nice scenario because it builds your aim and precision and speed all in kind of one go, but helps you build a nice flow. And as you improve, you get faster and faster and faster with it, which is pretty positive. I like this one a lot. This one's slept on quite a bit. And if you haven't tried this one out, give this one a go. This is one that's different compared to Spidershot, Motionshot, and all of those, or Gridshot. It just kind of ties everything together. And even if you fail and miss, then it forces you to become accurate, which is good, you know? Alright, so let's go up next here with Gridshot Ultimate. This one, I don't really have to talk too much about. Everyone really knows. But you see, even as I'm flicking, the downside to this is that this just builds muscle memory to improve at Gridshot. I think my average score, I'm not going to hit it while I'm doing this video, unfortunately, is around 100k plus. The max I've gotten is 110k. You've seen it in videos before. This one isn't bad. It just, you're only going to get good at Gridshot, and that's it. You don't move like this in game, but use the speed variant to build that, or the multi-shot one that we just focused on, and you're going to build a lot more muscle memory and positivity towards your aim than anything else. Horde shot is really nice. Really, really nice. Well, what I like about this scenario is the way they crouch. A lot of scenarios in Aim Lab don't have the crouching, and the way the crouch is nice and smooth in this is very specific to Horde shot. And I really like it a lot. I think it's very specific for this and how it feels to make small micro adjustments with your aim. And I highly recommend using this scenario than any other one when it comes to single shots. This feels a little bit more like Apex Legends. I know there's a lot of targets. I would change this to make it more conducive to Apex, but it's pretty darn close to that feeling you get by flicking just a little bit. It's nice, so I definitely recommend that one. So again, Snipershot, whether it is the ultimate version or whatever, I think you could stay clear of this. It might be even more beneficial to go into Apex Legends and using this. I think this is more beneficial to other games. I don't think it's applicable as much to Apex Legends, so we're going to skip this one. I think what will help you more as a sniper is literally this next scenario that we're going to discuss right now. Six-Shot Ultimate. If you're looking for precision and looking to improve your accuracy, you can literally zoom in and flick between targets here. I think this will help you a lot more because you can change your sensitivity and scope. If you go to options, you can change that. You can change the zoom whenever you right click. Let's go to controls. You see optic. You can go to 10x if you want and zoom in here. This will be better for just getting precise, which is what the goal of the other scenario is. I just don't want you guys to build bad habits and not getting used to leading your targets. It's fine if you're hitting a static target and being precise and trying to, you know, be accurate from a distance. Remember, there's bullet drops, so just build the core fundamentals whenever you're shooting, and you can zoom in with it. And this is even more so than sniping. This is going to give you that really strong base. Overall, Six-Shot Ultimate is probably one of the best scenarios that you can improve your precision on, and one that you should not skip. This is an amazing one. I know I've been a little harsh in some of the other scenarios, but there is a lot of amazing ones, and it seems like we're starting to come up on those as we keep rolling the video. So let's keep on going. Spidershot 180 is also amazing, so let's cover that. This is also an amazing scenario. You hit 2 targets and you flick. I flicked a little early. This is great for figuring out your 360 or 180 movement. This is good for figuring out if your sensitivity is too slow, because if it's too slow, you're not going to be able to do this. And this is important in Apex Legends, almost a vital one of how important it is, because whenever you're wall bouncing and flicking between targets, how important it really is. So now when you use this, go do a Spheretrack to see if you can still do a nice track, and then go do Startrack Speed or Precision, the micro one, to balance out your sensitivity. See the theme here, how we're using some of them to isolate problems with your aim, and that's literally the goal that you should have as you're doing these. I think this used to have a top 100 score. I highly doubt we're going to hit that with this, but we should get on to the next scenario because I don't want to waste any of your time. Line trace. So this is a great one for improving that, you know, with burst flick. Remember how I mentioned how my aim, I need to focus on improving the, I tend to have a little bit of a bounce with my aim, and I honestly could remove that and improve that dramatically by using line trace and kind of getting back down to basics. I call this getting back down to basics. This is beneficial to games even outside of Apex Legends. I understand I have that bit of a bounce, no matter my sensitivity, whatever it is. With my aim, it's just a bad habit I've formed over the years. I probably need to do this one a lot to get rid of that habit, to be honest. It just kind of helps me it's like, I don't know, skipping kind of keeps you a pep to your step, but the downside is whenever you're trying to just be as minimal in hitting a target as possible. Now take it up a step further. You can do multi-line. I don't necessarily see the reason for you to always do this, you know, multi-line by predicting where the next target is. I think that the regular line trace is just fine. So if you're going to focus on one, just do the regular line trace. This one is just to add, if you do it too much, a little bit something different, and that's okay. The click timing ultimate, you don't necessarily need to worry about this for Apex Legends. You just wait until it goes to the center. The downside to this is there's bullet velocity in Apex Legends, so this doesn't really benefit you as much. This is better for Valorant or CSGO. I'm clicking, already getting used to like, oh, it's a wingman, it's a little bit delayed. And you kind of have to recalibrate in your head hitting a target. This isn't bad though, especially just for building the base. Build the base and don't focus too much on this because it'll build a little bit of bad habits because there is bullet velocity in Apex Legends. Like as I'm shooting, I feel like I'm accounting for, oh, I'm using a longbow, I'm using a wingman. Get used to that. Don't focus too much. Get the base here, then move forward. Okay. Now as we're doing wall peek, this is more CSGO, but can still be beneficial to help you cut an angle and cut a corner, especially when you're wall peeking. So you got a wall peek there, and then you flick. Most people don't know how to cut corners properly in Apex Legends, mostly because Apex Legends is also their first game and it's very movement-based. This can be a good reminder to make sure that you're cutting your angles appropriately. And then you can take it up a notch and do intermediate. I think for Apex Legends, for most players, I think the intermediate is a much better one than the static one, just because most targets are going to be moving. So this is going to be more beneficial towards you on the intermediate immediately than the basic. And then if you do expert, you're going to have even more fun. The bounce. I think the intermediate is just fine. Most people don't jump, but I do like the crouch there. So that's pretty nice. The rockets are there. Hey, you know, actually, this is actually better than I thought. I remember it. It's been a hot minute since I've done this one. I guess because the visual clutter of being shot at is pretty nice. So this is actually a pretty good one. I wouldn't even start with the basic. I would start with the intermediate and go exactly into the expert, to be honest. You're not going to do much angle holding in Apex Legends, so you don't need to practice this. I mean, ideally you'd want to, but this is pretty slow. This benefits more CSGO Valorant than it does for Apex Legends. Horde shot is way more beneficial to you, so we don't need to stay long on that. Microflex Standard. Let's take a look at this one. So you just got to flick to the target. And if you're slow, like I was there, can't seem to hit my targets. This is that straight line that I was talking about, and if I have a little bit too much of a bounce to my aim, I got to work on this. That's just, you know, as you do these videos, you learn. You got to improve some things, you know? Headshot reflex. I think the Valorant version is much better than this one, but it's still pretty solid. When we cover the Valorant one, you'll see what I'm talking about. This is good for practicing the horizontal aim, but still, there's other scenarios that'll be better for you for Apex. Burstflick Ultimate is a really good one as well. It's a good balance. Valorant Ascent Headshot. This one I think is much better. Even though it's built for Valorant, when we talk about headshots, this one is much better. Built for building just a speed and flicking on a horizontal basis than the other ones, in my opinion. I just really like this one. This feels more Apex and just kind of building speed around it. Apex is really built around speed and precision. I guess it's a bit of everything. Apex is literally every single thing tied together. And the more scenarios kind of hit upon every single part of the aim, specifically with Ultimate series, or going to the extremes and then balancing things out, is going to be your overall goal. Microflex. The Valorant series just really excels at this, to be honest. They do a fantastic job at this. The Microflex, the really small ones, are even better than the micro scenarios that we did before. The Valorant list is just really rock solid, to be honest. There's a lot of benefits there. Just a reminder, if I do reach an hour mark, we'll follow up with more. Let's see what you guys think of this. This is my longest video I've ever done, so I want your guys' thoughts. I know it kind of maybe feels a little over the place here and there. Now this one's really good. This one is fantastic for Apex Legends. I know it's Valorant based, but it's so good. Is the tracking left and right for Apex Legends. This is a common scenario if somebody's like strafing in front of you. And the movement. This is even better than the reactive series. Any one of them. Spheretrack is good for building the full aim and like the 360 movement, but this is good for what's in front of you whenever somebody's trying to ego you in a 1v1 scenario. You got an R99, R31 Volt, and they're just saying 1v1 me. You know, this is, you got to do the scenario. I need to kind of set myself back down to basics and do this. I used to have a top 100 score on this. Some of this is because I have a high FOV. I need to practice at the higher FOV. I'm so used to practicing at the lower one. I need to change that up. The wall peak for Valorant is more specific for Valorant. I think the other one that we showed for wall peak expert is better. This isn't bad, but you see how there's 3 targets and they shoot at you? I think the jumping and the rockets and everything are a little bit better for Apex Legends for a wall peak than it is for the Valorant series, but it can be very beneficial. Now, these scenarios, the Valorant Haven ones, are not necessarily built for Apex, as you can see, but the difference is that you can learn how to cut a corner. And if this Apex Legends is your first shooter, spend a little time on these and work on building some of that muscle memory there. That's really going to help you out of where you need to flick and where you need to move to, especially when you cut an angle. It helps you get creative, especially in a battle royale, of how to use various geometry in your favor. So this is probably the one that I would recommend most. There's a few others that this has that, while are beneficial, I think it's best to use Haven as the base mark. This is similar to just reacting. You don't have to flick to the target, but just when you see the target, then you mouse click if it's red. If it's red, if it's blue, you don't shoot. And it's red, you shoot. Not as beneficial for Apex Legends, but it is a Valorant playlist. But we have already found amazing scenarios within that playlist that are very beneficial towards you. So Valorant Haven entry. I would stick with the other entry. I think the other one has a lot more angles than this one does. And I just totally screwed up on that. So if I reset, there's one on the left. I don't play enough Valorant, but I know how it is competitively, so I should be playing this smarter than I actually am. I think there's a lot more angles for the other one than there is for this. In terms of cutting a room, I guess you can utilize this when you're cutting a bunker, but the more open space feels a little bit more like Apex Legends. And we talk about split angle hold here. In terms of this overall list, I don't think this is best for Apex Legends because bullet velocity. In Valorant and CSGO, there's less bullet velocity to worry about. Everything is pretty much, you know, shoot, click, boom. But you got to remember bullet velocity, and this could build some bad habits. Valorant Breeze headshot. This one's pretty good though. This one is actually good to utilize. Oh no, I don't think it works. That's a bug. That's okay. All right. Well, if that one doesn't work, we'll come back to that. But when you're in Breeze headshot, and again, Aim Lab is in beta. When you're Breeze headshot, they're really small and really far away. Can be really beneficial. The TENS Haven clutch is actually pretty good for Apex Legends because all the targets keep running at you from different angles, which can feel a little bit more like Apex if somebody's jumping off a rock to come and attack you, you know, especially building some of that precision up. This is, even though I know it's Valorant, can be very applicable, like the base that you're building for Apex Legends. Don't focus too much on this. There's other scenarios that are going to be more beneficial, but the movement also at least kind of helps you build a base here, which is really, really nice. Now, for the Siege ones, this is tricky because if you're practicing this, then you're not getting used to how things look in Apex Legends. This is more applicable to Siege. You're not going to see much of a benefit here. The difference is to get your eyes used to the colors, or lack thereof, as you flick between them. And then they're also, the way their weapons work are a little bit different. I need to ADS, and I'm not going to ADS in this scenario because if I don't, you know, like you can ADS in Apex Legends to be pretty accurate. So this one doesn't help. The Siege entry, I would focus on the Haven one instead of the Siege one. I think that one is more beneficial towards Apex Legends than this one is. This was one of the first entry ones that I did, which isn't bad, but you know, you do have the spray weapon here for Siege, and I think the other Valorant one is a bit better for like a base. So Siege entry 2, just focus on the Haven one if you're playing Apex Legends. Especially just because it feels a lot more open. Siege is very close quarters within buildings. You're going to be in buildings, but the buildings in Apex are pretty straightforward. A lot of your fights happen in open ground, which is why I kind of mentioned Haven, because it feels a little bit more open than the other ones. The lane peaks for both Valorant and for Siege, the wall peak, intermediate, expert are much better. And the reason why this is more the way it works for recoil just feels better for the other one. And then entry for Siege Clubhouse. Don't need to worry about this one as well, so we'll move on from this. Siege Scanning. I think you're kind of seeing kind of a theme. Intermediate for Wall Peak and Expert, because those are a little bit more conducive towards Apex Legends. Trigger Control, don't need to worry about that one. Don't worry about your trigger control for Apex Legends for now. Focus on the base and everything that we've talked about so far. Again, that's because this is a Siege scenario, but I'm covering everything just so you feel like we've covered our base, you know? This one isn't bad though, actually. The Siege, it's because you do have a bit of recoil in there, but remember, if you're building the habits for recoil, then, because these move a little faster actually. This is actually pretty good, because they move at different speeds than just the regular Switchtrack, but I would still highly recommend Motiontrack and everything else than these targets. Just because some targets are not going to move that slow in Apex Legends. Unless they're 1v1ing you, then use Valorant Tracking Ascent. And then there's the Siege multi-shot. I would do the regular multi-shot. I know there's a bit of recoil in there, which can be beneficial, but I think it's better for Apex Legends players to focus on the base. The entry, we can skip that one. Don't worry about it. We're good on that. And that pretty much covers the playlist. So that puts us pretty short of 5 minutes out of the whole hour, pretty much. I really hope you guys found this beneficial. I know this was a lot, and I tried. I didn't mean to try to race through any of these. I just wanted to make sure that we covered absolutely everything. I mean, we covered the whole base Aim Lab library of what's beneficial. So if I look at this list and we spend the last 5 minutes just discussing what we saw here, focus on speed and precision and then finding a balance. The Strafetrack and shots and Circletrack are just all okay. The Rocketshot is going to be really beneficial because it adds a visual clutter and stuff moves a little bit more freely like that. Motiontrack, Spheretrack, Arctrack, Startrack, Microtrack, not much Abovetrack. Belowtrack, really nice. Motionshot, really strong. Snipershot, avoid. Circletrack, only if you're doing ultimate. Gridshot, speed variant. The Microstartrack, the slower ones the faster ones, excuse me, precision, as well as basing it with speed. Really nice. I don't think the standard really helps you. I think going to the extremes is a bit better there. Let's see here. What else do we cover? The headshots, the Valorant ones that we covered are really strong as well. I know these are just different variants. The decision shot, the only ones I recommend were the ones that were regarding speed. The audio spatial, only focus on the speed variant because Apex Legends doesn't have audio. Good meme. Multi-shot, nice for flow. 6-shot ultimate we mentioned was a killer. Amazing scenario there. Line trace, good for building fundamentals, as we kind of saw the flaw in my aim overall. Spidershot 180, great for finding out your 360 move or 180 movement. I guess if you just kept going, then full 360. Wall peak intermediate, wall peak expert. I'm gonna spend some time on those again, just because, you know, doing them again, I'm like, wow, these are actually pretty good. Scattershot, pretty solid. The headshot ascent Valorant, really strong. Microflex, really good. Tracking, really good. Not so much the wall peak and only Haven entry. The rest of them, don't need to worry about. 10's Haven clutch, pretty solid. The Siege, only one I really think was really strong for us here was probably the multi-shot. Everything else with Siege is very specific to Siege, but that is why it's Rainbow Six Siege, right? We're focusing on things for Apex Legends. Again, hopefully you guys found this video helpful. I know it's really long. I apologize for that, but hopefully there's a lot of mindset, and hopefully you just found a through line here. Hopefully you look at this and said, oh, that's what I need to do, or that's what I need to build here. And I hope that gives you some confidence in improving your aim. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.